Hi, Bob Leda here, and welcome to this episode of Stepping into the River. This week we're working with hands and what it means to move your hands and arms. Part of this falls within the scope of a discipline called body mapping, which was created by a couple, Barbara and Bill Conable, who were working at Ohio State University in the 1960s, and they needed a way to explain what they had noticed as Alexander teachers. And it's a separate discipline all of its own right now, and I use parts of it in my work. Most of this comes from what you believe your hands are. Where do they start? Where do they end? How do they work? I don't know if you can see it in the film as we have it, so I'm going to show it to you. But here are two bumps. This is the end of your arm, and your fingers go farther than here, even though a lot of us can think that way because of making a fist. If you trace, they come to about here more or less. And the bumps are farther down, so there's a gap between the two. There's two rows of four bones, and those are your wrist bones or your carpals, and they let you do things like this. In addition, we talk about the opposable thumb, which lets for us as humans, we can have the pad of our thumb and the pad of our fingers come together, and you can't do that with fingers. And then these four operate kind of as a unit because there's a ligament that ties them together right in here. Finally, when you wiggle your fingers, the muscles that do that aren't in your hand, but they're rather in your arm, which you can find by putting your fingers like this, and you'll feel muscular effort up in there. With this student, he was wonderfully skeptical, I believe, but as we went through this, the effect on his playing was quite surprising. So have a look, have a listen, and we'll see you on the other side. Push. Hey, we're on. Seiko, we got your crew here. Extra eyes, extra ears. They're here to offer insight and illumination into how you go about playing. You know, we will do our usual stuff. Compares top half to bottom half. Left side to right side, where's home base? Where does Seiko go when finishing a phrase? Front half to back half, what might be contributing more to keeping him upright? What you catch about his breathing, and where your attention goes as he plays. That's the general stuff. Is there anything specific that you're either working on these days that you'd like to take advantage of, you know, because they're here watching you?
I don't know. I think in terms of like awareness, I'm trying to right now I'm trying to really keep my wrist straight and like have better posture because I had a tendonitis injury.
Okay.
It's mostly healed, but I'm still lacking a little bit of mobility.
Okay. So we'll look at what's going on through your left arm and hand. Okay, that's grand, man. I'm getting out of the way. It's all yours. Nice one. Hang on, I gotta get a prop. That's great. Okay. Can you put the guitar down for a second?
Yeah.
Because I do want to do a thing with hands. We move according to what we believe, and what I want to get at is some of your beliefs about your hands and how that interacts with the shapes that you take, with the posture that you have. So, you talked about keeping your wrists straight. Where's your wrist?
Right here.
Okay, so it's like for you, it's this thing.
The joint. Yeah.
Okay. These bumps here, right? They have anything to do with your wrist?
Probably, because that's where it like joins the hand.
Right, okay, yeah, so these bumps are the end of your arm, when you get this place here. They're the equivalent to these bumps, in your legs.
Mm.
Now here's sort of like the end of your fingers, right? Oh, where do your fingers begin? Point to
I
it
would
if you
say
want.
like right here, but I know like the finger bones like they start like over
Yeah,
here,
right.
right? Yeah.
And then how
like
far
I can
down?
feel
Yeah,
like where they separate.
okay. And then how far down do they go?
So like
Do they go all the
they
way?
join around here.
Yeah, see, so that's different, that's a different place from where you pointed to is where your wrist was.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'll just show you a picture of all of this, because you're absolutely on target with what you're saying. Is it okay to look at the skeleton on the phone?
Sure.
All right. So, if you see here, your wrist bones, there's 2 rows of 4 things there, right? So this is the bumps, the end of your arm. Then you have these 2 rows of 4, and your wrist joints let you do this. It's more than that. They let your fingers move 3-dimensionally. So that's a little bit tricky. You all can take this and just pass it around. You can see what it looks like. And when I watched you, it looked as looked as though you were trying to do something in here to keep something straight around there. Is that fair?
Yeah. Also like thumb placement, because
Yeah,
I have
when
it a
you
little bit higher than
right, and then you have that thumb that really moves this way too. It's on your right thumb, like
Yeah.
way more than it's not that. Way more.
Yeah, it goes further than my right thumb.
Yeah,
I think that's just like pressure from the guitar.
Oh, it can be. God, I had a student once who could take his thumb all the way down to here.
Oh, like backwards?
Yeah, he was a drummer.
Wow.
Like, I can do it this way, but like
Wow, my goodness, you do that one again?
like this.
Oh,
Oh.
my gosh. Wow.
I can do that.
It's just like wrist flexibility, because like the thumb just
So, here, you're doing all this fingering, right? Where are the muscles that do that?
For this,
Yeah.
so like here, but also in the palm.
There's some supplementary ones there
Yeah.
too. Yeah, so, put your hands like this and, wiggle your fingers around. You'll feel a lot of action back up in here. The primary muscles that do that are way, way, way back here. So if you're trying to stiffen this, things are a lot harder.
Mm.
Things are a lot harder. But I think I'm gonna restate what your goal is you don't want this to be flippy, like that. That there, yeah.
I want it to be stable. It can be loose though.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly, because you have all of these ligaments in there for stability, and that's all that happens. So, to open and close your hand, and have a sense of your fingers coming all the way to here, because that's where the bones are. These ones, see this, yeah, actually, all of you all try this. Where does your thumb like to be? In the same plane as your fingers, or does it like to be on its own? Slightly on its own, yeah. We have a thing called an opposable thumb, and that means you can have the pad of your thumb and the pad of your fingers pointed at each other, right? And these four are tied together. They kind of operate as a unit. There was, I forget who it was, it might have been Schumann, but who wanted to really reach on the piano, so he cut.
Oh.
Either he was injured and cut, but it's so he got a big, like, reach a 10th, I think.
Oh.
Just-
That's crazy.
So one of the ways to sort of get in touch with this full length and shape of your fingers is to use this handy dandy juggling ball and then close. Try it with your right hand first. Do it the 6 times you're in here and then close. Try not to anticipate it's getting there, but it. So try that with your hitting into your right hand. Yeah. Do it, yeah, do it 6 times. Now, do your two hands feel different from each other?
Not really.
Not really?
Maybe a little bit.
Do it to your left hand. Yeah, your left hand's very personal.
Yeah.
Now, see how that is, to just move this around. This one particularly.
It was a little bit looser.
Yeah, yeah. So when you get this full length through here, and if you don't happen to have a juggling ball, guess what? You got your fist. And you can always do that. And the thing with doing this is you let it land first and then close. So now I'm gonna go back to doing this. So you want stability and flexibility simultaneously. And for that, if you, I forget who I did the elbow roll thing with, but you've got your wings back here, and,
That was the.
yeah, exactly. So that's very true when you're reaching. Oh, that's the other thing, I think you're keen on this as well. When you rotate your hand like this, right? Because that's what you do. Do you move around your thumb, or do you move around your finger, or do you move around something else? What's your sort of?
Green, like to
Yeah,
do this?
what are you rotating, what are you rotating around?
I guess more my thumb.
So, put your hand like this, and try to rotate around your thumb. Weird, right? Yeah, it's the little finger side is what will really move it around to do that. So when you're coming up here, yeah, your thumb can leave, but this is the thing, right? And then when you're doing that kind of rotation, here, I'll put your hand here. I'm gonna try, ow, I can't do it, right? Now grab your elbow. Whoa, I can do it. That's because there's two bones and one crosses the other, and so the rotation is happening all the way back here, right? And it's your thumb side that's moving. And the other side is, that's where your stability comes from, that you're looking for, yeah. So, with all of that, try that, let's see what happens this time. That stability really comes down this side, and you got that wonderful movement. Okay? Cool. I'm getting out of the way. Jacob, I got a marker, here's a present. What did you see? What did you hear? Ari, go ahead.
I definitely felt like your posture was also better.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Watch the video. You said,
Yeah, and just it looked more comfortable with your hand with that, like, I don't know, placement.
No, he did look more comfortable though, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
I saw just like a more stable arm in general. Like there was less kind of big movements. It seemed really controlled. So,
Yeah, it's more moving from the inside out than
Mhm.
the outside in, yeah.
And like less tension definitely
Mhm.
in this arm.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, no.
It felt more like steady, like more groove.
Mhm. Yeah, sounded, oh. Yeah. Was that a different experience for you, Sarah?
Yeah, it felt pretty good. I feel like I should have chosen a piece that I knew a little bit better because at some point, like, my focus just went back to like my default. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, what am I doing with my
You
hand?
could feel that happening, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah.
At first I was focusing on the stability stuff,
Mhm.
so that felt pretty good.
Yeah, it looked like it gave you more freedom to do what you wanted to do, and it did really clarify things for your back. It was, I think you'll get a good angle from the camera too if you watch. There was less of a, and now I'm going to exaggerate, less of this sort of coming forward from around here, and more, you could see a lot of quietness through here, and you were able to do things, and that's what I was hoping you'd find. Yeah. And you always have your fist, you always have your fist, and stability down this side. A big hand, hey!
Hi, welcome back. There was quite a marked difference in how this student used himself as an instrument to play his instrument. That's the territory of the Alexander technique. And for the entry point this time, we did go into the idea of what his hands were and how they worked. As some of the commenters noted, there was a change in his posture, which I expected. A change in the effect of how the sound landed on them, and in effect, a change in his internal environment. I think our job as Alexander teachers is to spike a person's curiosity about what it's like to do something in the world and pick a methodology that might give them a good chance of actually experiencing a change. And I believe that's what happened with this student today. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time. Okay, bye for now.